All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here. We'll be doing a preview and prediction for Week 8 contest between Alabama and Tennessee. The third Saturday in October is upon us. Vols going on the road as 7.5-point underdogs, maybe even up to 8.5 looking at your books. 58.5 is the total. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Getting things started with that Tennessee offense against that Crimson Tide defense. For Tennessee, we weren't sure what this group would look like inserting Joey Aguilar late into the cycle of all the whole saga at quarterback, and it's worked out tremendously. All year long, this offense has been humming 48.5 points per game. They even played against Georgia early on in the year, and they looked great. They put up 41 in that contest. They ended up blowing it, as they always do, but they got off to a hot start. Aguilar, he cooled off a little bit, but he was still incredibly accurate, and he also was able to find the end zone for 4 touchdowns. He was lofting these balls downfield, giving his receivers plenty of opportunities. Did have 2 interceptions. His accuracy was sporadic as the game went on, but regardless, Nick, this guy has proven that he can come into this conference and deal. And now this is going to be his first big time road game, though. Week 1, they played against Syracuse in a dome at a neutral site at Mississippi State a few weeks ago. He looked good in that game as well. But for Aguilar to now go on the road to Tuscaloosa is going to be a different challenge. Look at these pass catchers, a group that's not been as stable. I thought in terms of depth coming into the year is really impressed. You have 3 guys that's sitting over 400 plus yards. Chris Brazell leads the way. He stepped up immensely after a disappointing 2024 campaign. He's got 7 touchdowns. Braylon Staley, 2 more scores with 431. Mike Matthews right behind him. And then Miles Kitzelman is a very good tight end, 204 and 2 scores this year. I think for Tennessee, you're going to look to do what you did against Georgia, right? Open up this offense, spread out Alabama, put them in man coverage situations to allow your wide receivers to cook. And that's what Brazell did against Georgia. He could not stop flaming them at 6'5", 200 pounds. He had 177 yards and a hat trick. And you're going to be going up against an Alabama secondary I think has some question marks potentially, Nick, when it comes to those man coverage situations. Everyone knows that I'm not a big fan of Damani Jackson. I don't think he's been great, and a lot of people consider him to be the top cover guy for Alabama. That can certainly lead to a lot of issues. Xavier Brown, on the other hand, he's been a little bit better, hasn't been targeted as much. I think Dejon Lee's a guy that'll get more leeway in this game. It's really going to come down to these corners, Nick. We're going to talk more, of course, about this offense on the Tide defense, but this is the matchup I'm circling. If Tennessee can win this matchup, they have a great chance of winning this game, and I think it's certainly possible they do have success because I'm not a big fan of these corners in man-to-man situations.
This Tennessee offense has looked really solid so far, right? 48.2 points per game has been really solid. You wonder what they would look like with Joey Aguilar under center, and they have been firing on all cylinders. They've been really good. They've scored at least 30 points per game so far this season, and the only game where they didn't score more than 40 points was the game against Arkansas this past weekend where they won 34-31 in what was a great contest. The one loss on the season, like you spoke about earlier, to Georgia, they scored 41 points in that contest, so it certainly wasn't the offense's fault in that matchup against the Bulldogs here. I think Aguilar's looks good, right? He looks pretty solid and comfortable. 65% passing rating, or comp is pretty solid for him. 1,600 yards passing has been really good. 14 touchdowns and 5 interceptions is a pretty good number overall. I think this has been really solid. He's really put himself in a good spot. I really like what I've seen out of him. And Chris Brazell has been a grid receiver to start off the season. 536 yards receiving, the 7 scores, just about 90 yards per game, is a really impressive number. Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews have both stepped up. Miles Kitzelman has been very impressive at tight end. I was wondering what he would look like. You knew Brazell was going to be really solid, but you wondered if Staley and Matthews would be able to step up and complement this offense and really help things out here. And both of them have played really good football so far. When you look at those corners for Alabama, Damani Jackson has been a complete liability. On that first touchdown that Missouri scored, he ran out of bounds and just kind of gave up on the play. He was trying to intercept the ball and then ran out of bounds for no reason and let the tight end just blow right by him. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the clip. It's absolutely embarrassing. He shows no effort. He looks completely lost out there. He's a ghost, and he is a massive problem. He was a problem at USC, and it's not really working out for him at Alabama. And I really question whether or not Kane Womack will continue to give him chances on that side of the ball. Xavier Brown has been solid, 3 pass breakups. For him, he's been a pretty good coverage asset, but a good point that you make there, right? They're not targeting him a ton, and I think that makes sense. They're going to probably continue to target Damani Jackson. So that's a big matchup. Can Damani Jackson win his battle? This defense for Alabama, 17.3 points per game. The pass defense, 6 interceptions to 5 touchdowns given up, so that's some pretty good numbers there. Bray Hubbard has 3 of those picks. He has been really solid for this team. Justin Jefferson has a pick. Keon Sabb has a pick as well. And then Dejon Lee, he got that pick at the end of the game. He could have had one earlier in the game against Missouri as well. He has been really solid. I'm hoping to see more out of him because he's got 11 total tackles and 2 TFLs, a very talented player in the making for Alabama.
Now let's go ahead and look at another matchup that Tennessee could potentially have an advantage in the rushing attack against the Alabama run defense. Now, they have not been very good this year at limiting explosive plays. The last two games, Vanderbilt and Missouri had success running the ball and then just decided to go completely away from it and spam passes the entire game when it's a one-score contest. The thing is, Tennessee's probably not going to do that. I know they also have an RPO-style offense, and that could certainly lead to less rushing attempts. But nonetheless, Tennessee, they're going to pound the rock 40 times per game. That's what they do. Against Georgia, they had 34 attempts, and I thought they had some success despite only 125 yards total rushing in that game. It's a three-headed monster for them. Deshaun Bishop, Star Thomas, Peyton Lewis. Bishop's going to be your RB1, but Thomas is a very effective player as well, especially as a pass catcher. This is a slashing rushing attack, Nick. They love to get going with tempo by running the football. And if Alabama's going to allow explosives to Tennessee, it's going to be a long day because that's where they thrive, right? They get going on the ground, they utilize that tempo, and then they start to attack you downfield when you're not prepared. And that's why this defense, or this offense rather, is just so tough to defend. I know they have not always had the greatest of success, especially on the road against these top tier opponents. But this is a different group, I feel like, and I feel like the advantage is certainly potentially lying in their favor if this Alabama defense is going to play the same way it has most of the year, and that's with inconsistency. It's also with a lack of pass rush. Georgia was not able to find much against a really good offensive line. Lance Hurd on the left side, very good. Right tackle Jesse Perry's been playing some very good football for them, and then you look at the interior, Sam Pendleton, very good player. And then Wendell Moe at right guard's been a phenomenal transfer from Arizona. So this is a good offensive line, Nick. I really feel like they can compete with Alabama's defense, but going on the road is going to be tough. You got to stay away from long downs and distances. You also got to avoid penalties. So this is going to be a fun chess match altogether, but I think Tennessee on paper potentially could have some advantages.
Yeah, I think this is a very big potential opportunity for them to dominate on the ground and be really solid here. We've seen this Alabama run defense be weak at times, right? There's no sugarcoating it. They've been weak. They've struggled at times in some of these key matchups. They looked pretty good against Missouri. They ended up having a decent day. They were able to shut down Ahmad Hardy and really put themselves in a good position. Overall, this Alabama run defense giving up 4.82 yards per attempt on the ground, 8 touchdowns on the season, and 940 yards total. So still really, not great numbers when you look at that as an Alabama fan like myself, I am. I think it's certainly concerning that they're giving up that much on the ground. And this is a Tennessee rushing attack that is a really strong unit led by Deshaun Bishop. You figured if they were going to have a lot of success on offense this year, it would probably go through their rushing attack. Deshaun Bishop leading the way, 481, 7.6, and 5 scores by 80 yards per game for him. Star Thomas and Peyton Lewis over 200 yards each, 4 for touchdowns for Thomas, 5 for Lewis. So they're both really solid in that regard. I like what they're all able to do. This offensive line's been really strong for this Tennessee team so far. 5.32 yards per attempt, 17 rushing touchdowns. Similar to what Tennessee was able to do last year, they were able to put up a lot of rushing touchdowns on the board. They lost their top back, ended up graduating, and then they were still able to find some production out of Bishop, Thomas, and Lewis. So that's been really good so far. The Alabama pass rush, there were some positive moments against Missouri. They were able to put some pressure on the quarterback, get in the backfield, get some tackles for loss, which was really good. LT Overton, 22 total tackles, 5 TFLs, 3 sacks for him. Yanze Pierre coming over at linebacker has been really solid, 18 total tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack for him. He's been really solid. But you're still looking for some more difference makers on the defensive line for Alabama. I think, James Smith, London Simmons, these are guys that got to step up just a little bit here. They're not producing quite to the high level. Justin Jefferson, Deontay Lawson have both been really good at linebacker as well. 34 tackles for Lawson and 41 for Jefferson. That's a key matchup, right? Can this Alabama run defense stand up here? They looked good against Missouri. They looked good against Georgia. Can they look good in this matchup after having a really bad day against Florida State? If they can shut down the run and make Aguilar throw, they could potentially force a turnover or two, which they've been really good at doing this year, and put themselves in a great spot to win this game.
Well, Georgia also smoked them on the ground pretty badly. The secondary also has had some poor run fits. That's been an inconsistent part. Bray Hubbard's your tone setter at safety. He's a ball hawk, and of course, he's a hard hitter. He's always able to force turnovers when you need them. Moving to the other side of things, the Alabama offense on that Tennessee defense for the Crimson Tide. Shaky start in week one, and they've bounced back. Ryan Grubbs did a great job of settling his young quarterback down. Ty Simpson's been on a heater for the most part this year. You look at his numbers, it's allowing him to be the Heisman favorite at the moment. 1,678 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was on a 4th down against Vanderbilt where he just threw it up for grabs. So he's pretty much got no picks. He's been highly efficient at 71%. Can't really ask for much more other than sometimes he likes to take sacks while evading. He had one against Missouri as well. Ran up losing the ball. So very much a lot of positives from Ty Simpson's game. He's been utilizing these pass catchers to great perfection. Gurmy Bernard, of course, he's great. Continues to be the best player on this offense in terms of skill position wise. Ryan Williams. It wasn't much of a factor against Missouri. I'm hearing he was a little banged up. But throughout the year after Florida State, he's been pretty good for them. He's been a great playmaker, does have a couple of drop touchdowns this year, so that's a problem as well. Isaiah Horton is really starting to emerge the last couple of weeks. He has 270 and 4 touchdowns. Josh Cuevas, I think, is a respectable tight end. You also have Lord Zaire Brooks. He's been making some nice plays as well. So this is a nice receiving group that's starting to really come into form with some depth. And that's got to be a very impressive aspect for Grubb and what he's been able to accomplish. The run game, I think the jury's potentially still out on them, but Jam Miller coming back, his vision and patience has allowed them to really start to get a surge behind this great offensive line. You've seen it against Missouri. You've seen it against Vanderbilt. Now, they didn't exactly stick with it, and it didn't really last long term despite a large amount of reps. And when he's not in the game, Nick, Jam Miller, nobody else is doing anything. I mean, their yards per carry number from the other backs has just been very worrisome. And Miller, questionable right now. He left the game against Missouri with a concussion. That could be a problem. And if Alabama's forced to go back to a one-dimensional offense, I think they'll be comfortable in that situation because they're so good at executing downfield and on third down in the pass game. You're going up against a Tennessee defense that's still going to be without their top corners. Ricky Gibson, of course, is injured. And then Jermod McCoy is yet to take the field. Maybe he'll play in this one, but I wouldn't expect him to. And if he does, he'll be on probably a pitch count. So it's going to be up to Colton Hood, Ty Redmond. These guys have played pretty good this year, though. Hood, he's been quite impressive. I was never really a fan of his at Colorado, but he stepped into that cornerback one role so far and has been tremendous. Some of the other components of this secondary include Jalen McMurray, a veteran in the slot, and then some younger, at least one young safety, and Edris Farouk, and then Andre Turrentine. He's a veteran, but he hasn't been very good this year. This passing attack for Bama, Nick, they're incredibly tough to slow down. My only concern is that they've not been very good in the second half. No points against Georgia, and then against Missouri, the only touchdown they had was off a short field because of a fake punt that they stopped. So they've been great, and they've been starting games well, but the consistency's not fully been there. Granted, those are 2 road games.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something to keep an eye on, right? Obviously, consistency has not been phenomenal in the second half for Alabama, but I still think this offense is playing really good football right now. And Ty Simpson, it looked dialed in. He's the Heisman frontrunner, in my opinion. Him and Fernando Mendoza are the 2 guys I think that are at the top of the heap right now, and they're really playing good football. And I think Simpson's playing phenomenal football. 71% comp rate, 600 yards passing, 16 touchdowns. The one aforementioned pick you talked about on the 4th down against Vanderbilt, where it was going to be a turnover anyway. I don't really hate him trying to force the ball in that situation. Jeremy Bernard is still the best player on this team, in my opinion. He's playing with a lot of heart. He's playing great football. He's been absolutely incredible for this Alabama offense. 412 yards receiving, 14.7, and 5 scores. Ryan Williams was banged up against Missouri, so they used him as a decoy, which he really was able to do his job. He was a great decoy. He was able to draw the attention away from some of the other players on this roster, including Brooks, Horton, and Cuevas. So I think he did his job well. Obviously, you want him to be fully healthy and be involved in the offense because he is such a dynamic and really incredible threat that you can have in your offense. I think he's a guy that we're keeping an eye on, see what Ryan Williams can do. He's been blowing hot and cold, but he plays pretty well at Bryant-Denny Stadium, so maybe they'll get him involved here as an opportunity to uncork him. 336 yards, 16 yards for grab, and 3 scores. Horton has really stepped up and been good, 270 and 4 scores for him. Brooks, no touchdowns, but he's been a big threat so far that's been able to get involved and do some positive things for this offense, 216 yards receiving for him. Cuevas has been really good as well, 154 and 2 scores. Kevin Riley, the running back, has 139 and a touchdown. He's been really solid. As for the rushing attack, it's still not exactly where you want it to be. I think there's obvious concerns when it's 3.67 yards per attempt. It's certainly not a good number. 34.8 points per game and 6.25 yards per play. So obviously you'd like to get the rushing attack a little more involved, and Jam being banged up, potentially having a concussion, is not ideal considering he is your best out-and-out running back. Kevin Riley has shown me some positive things, but still not living up to it. And Caden Proctor is somehow a great running back when they get him involved. I wonder what tricks they have up their sleeves for Proctor this week. Been so fun to see him be involved, 3 weeks in a row. You can't tackle a big guy when he's coming down. He'll get a touchdown at some point this season. Proctor's been really fun to get involved in the offense, and I'm really glad they're doing that. It really sets a good tone and is rewarding for the key offensive line piece. As for this Tennessee defense, 29.3 points per game is probably a little bit higher than you were hoping for. You thought this defense would be a little bit better. Granted, they've played some good offenses, so I'm not entirely going to say this is that bad on them, right? They've played some good offenses, so I'm willing to give it a little bit of an excuse. But, 3.29 yards per attempt on the ground, pretty good against the run, 5.1 yards per play, so not bad overall. But they've been beat through the air, 9 touchdowns given up, only 4 interceptions, about 1,500 yards passing. So clearly the recipe is for Ty Simpson to attack this secondary and try to really be strong through the air. Andre Turrentine has been really good for this team, 37 total tackles, a pick for him. Got to attack the secondary here. Got to try and make them work for it. Jamon McCoy's been hurt, obviously. Try to attack Ty Redmond, the freshman, really get him involved and see what you can do against him. He's having a good season, 21 total tackles, a pick, and 4 pass breakups, but I think the key to success is targeting him, put a lot of pressure on him early on, and see what you can do.
Now, another matchup that I think could potentially favor the Tide is this offensive line, right? They're built with a tremendous amount of size. You alluded to Caden Proctor's been elite this year, especially on run blocking. Cam Dewberry's been a nice addition at left guard. Parker Brailsford's having a nice bounce back year in pass pro. Right guard Gino Van Denmark has been great. And then at right tackle, still been a bit of an issue. Will Conformi gave up a sack or two against Missouri. Michael Carroll's been playing in that spot a little bit as well. But they're still kind of trying to figure things out there. And for Tennessee, the defensive line has been a tad disappointing. Against the run, they weren't great against Mississippi. Didn't allow too many explosives, but they were just getting, churned up in terms of, 3, 4, 5 yards per carry. Georgia, they did that to them as well in the second half. So it's been tough for them to slow down these rushing attacks when they really stick to it. Against Arkansas, Mike Washington ripped off some explosives. They had trouble getting Taylon Green down to the floor. So the Tennessee run defense is clearly a bit of a weakness, but I still think they have a great defensive line. Bryson Eason, Dominic Bailey, Joshua Josephs is a great pass rusher, as is Tyree West. They still have guys like Jordan Ross and Nathan Robinson getting involved. So it's a deep group, right? And I think they're capable of a lot more if they're going up against a rushing attack that's iffy on how they'll perform. They could potentially step up and maybe even find some pass rush as well. That's certainly been a very difficult avenue to go down, is to try and find that against Alabama. Even though they did give up 4 sacks to Missouri, there's a lot of heat coming off the edge here, Nick. 26 sacks total for Tennessee. They had 4 against Georgia, 6 against Mississippi State, 5 against Arkansas. I mean, they've been elite in conference play. Just their run defense is a bit of an issue for them. But this is another intriguing matchup, right? And it's a great prove-it opportunity for both teams. That Alabama O-line against that Tennessee pass rush. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this has been an offensive line that's been really good so far outside of the right tackle position. I think everywhere else, the offensive line's been phenomenal. Proctor's been really dominant at left tackle. Dewberry's been a great complement at left guard. So they've been really solid overall, and I think that's really good to see that the offensive line is playing great football. Brailsford at center has been really good. Van Denmark has plugged in quite well at right guard. You're concerned about right tackle. Obviously, Formby has not been working out. I think you have to give Michael Carroll some more shots. I understand he's a younger player, and that's probably why you're not giving him the best looks, but I think Formby's just a liability. Wouldn't be surprised to see Carroll get more snaps this week. I think that's something to keep an eye on. The offensive line, though, has been really good. They've been able to provide protection to Ty Simpson and let him get opportunity. If you give him chances to stand back there and pick you apart, he will pick you apart all day. He's deadly accurate and would be in a really good spot. In terms of the pass rush for Tennessee, it's a good unit, right? There's no sugarcoating it. It's a really solid unit. Joshua Josephs, 25 total tackles, 5.5 TFLs, 4 sacks. Pretty good numbers there. He's been really solid for this team. Tyree West has been solid as well, 15 total tackles, 4 sacks for him. He's getting good pressure, and I think he's a guy that you want to keep an eye on that could potentially be a problem for this Alabama offensive line. That's an intriguing matchup. I think Alabama could potentially win the matchup, but it's something I'm keeping an eye on here. I wouldn't be necessarily surprised if you see a lot of pressure from Tennessee and they put a way to make Ty Simpson uncomfortable and force some mistakes out of him.
Of course, they have 2 great linebackers, Jeremiah Tellander, Arian Carter as well. Moving to the final thoughts on the prediction, I really think this is an interesting game, right? And I think the spread is growing way too high. I really don't understand why, because I think Tennessee can have success throwing the football downfield. I think their run game can also do some damage, and I think they'll have a pretty great first half, and they'll start hot, as they always do. Biggest problem with this offensive style, Nick, is when you score in 3 minutes, in your defense, they're on the field for another 7 minutes, and they give up a touchdown drive. You get the ball back, you go 3 and out, and your defense is right back on the field. And it's a con of having such a great offense and having such a scheme that you can rely on, is going to be good against tougher opponents. And I think that's just a big downfall for them, and I think Alabama will potentially be able to exploit it. I don't think they're going to get domed every single drive. And I think Alabama's passing attack with those top corners being out still for Tennessee, that's going to cause some problems. But I think Tennessee will have success running the football, and I think they'll be able to win some of those one-on-one matchups downfield. The tough road environment is obviously something you got to circle, but they're going to have 50-50 ball opportunities. Doesn't matter where you're playing when it comes to being able to create those, and Tennessee will. I think for Alabama, though, they're playing off house money at the moment. They've been able to win some of these road games. Going back home, it's tough to envision them losing. I still think there's a lot of weaknesses with this team. I don't see them blowing out Tennessee. I think this will be a close, interesting game. We're going to find out a lot about both opponents, Nick. This should be a good one.
This should be a really good game. Third Saturday in October, a great rivalry, one of the best in the sport. The winner gets smoked the cigars, a very big opportunity. Alabama has dominated Tennessee in Tuscaloosa. The last time that Tennessee won a game in Tuscaloosa was in 2003. You don't count the one in 2005 that was vacated, which Alabama won that game 6-3. But besides that, Nick Saban absolutely dominated this rivalry in Tuscaloosa. Now it's Kalen DeBoer's turn to get a crack at Tennessee in Tuscaloosa and really get a good opportunity. The last game in Tuscaloosa was really close, right? It ended up finishing 34-20 because Alabama got a strip sack fumble late in the game. It was 27-20, and Tennessee had a chance to drive, potentially tie the game up, but Alabama was able to force that fumble and return it for a touchdown and ultimately win the game. I could see something similar to that happening on Saturday. I think it will be a close game. These are two very talented teams at the top of the SEC. I think Alabama ultimately gets the job done, and they're in a really good spot to do so. This is a very talented roster that is playing great football here. I don't know exactly if it's going to be a high-scoring game. The total is pretty high, right at about 60.5 is what it opened at. I don't know if it will be that high, but I think this is an opportunity where these teams will go back and forth. It might slow down in the second half, really grind to a halt when the two defenses get comfortable. The offenses start getting some three and outs. A very intriguing matchup, a great game, a night game. A lot of the times this rivalry was played at 3:30 on CBS, so I believe they played a rivalry at night in 2019. They might have played at night in 2021 as well, if I'm not mistaken. I know they certainly did in 2019. So that was a good thing to see if you're an Alabama fan playing at night under the lights at Bryant-Denny Stadium. A tough matchup. Two SEC heavyweights going at it here. Very intrigued to see how this goes. I think the line makes sense. I understand why the books are putting it where they're putting it. A very intriguing matchup at the top of the conference.
Yeah, even though my score prediction is slightly hitting the over, I definitely think we could see this turn into a defensive affair as well. So I think this will be a good one for me for today's episode. If you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.